Tent stakes, the unsung heroes of the outdoors. What other piece of gear do you intentionally step on, hit with rocks, and all too often leave behind in the dirt at your campsite? And yet they remain loyal, straight shooting companions, well, some not so straight anymore. Ready to engage the elements to keep your stuff from blowing away. A couple of years ago during a bikepacking trip, my stake down tent was picked up and flipped over by a huge gust of wind. Ever since then, I've been itching to test tent stakes. I wanted to find out what stake design is best. I'm not looking for a specific brand, more so what tent stake design and construction best balances weight, durability, and performance. Cost is an important factor too, so I threw that into the mix. I'm focusing on smaller, more portable stakes, like those used in 3-season backpacking, when every gram counts. After a little research, I ordered some of the most popular versions, and these are the contenders. The Shepherd hooks. We tested a shorter, ultralight titanium version and a longer, thicker aluminum type. The peg stake. These come in a tremendous number of variations, from carbon fiber aluminum tipped to a steel nail. I chose to test just one type, as there doesn't seem to be enough variations in design or construction to test multiple. The Y stakes. Thus named for their distinctive Y shape when viewed from above. I tested a longer aluminum version with wider flanges and a short version with slight curves at the end of the flanges, both made out of aluminum. The V stakes, like the Y stakes, also named for their shape. Due to their variation, I tested a titanium version with lots of holes in it, I assume to save weight, a short aluminum alloy version, and a long aluminum version. So that was the field. 8 stakes, 4 general types, roughly divided into what I'll call long and short categories. I did some initial testing on our tensile tester to determine the best placement angle and stake depth. These variables impact performance significantly. Some companies that sell or distribute stakes include instructions inside their packaging. The Tent Lab, for example, lays out staking best practices in an easy to understand pictograph. They recommend a 15 to 20 degree angle when staking the tent floor, and a 20 to 30 degree angle when staking guy lines or vestibules. MSR has similar instructions on the back of their packaging. They recommend 10 degrees, so which is best? So I pulled the same stake from a lot of different angles, a lot of different times, and I was genuinely surprised with the results. Despite companies like the Tent Lab and MSR pushing how-to instructions with their products, I've always been a deep angle stake driver. In my mind, a 30 or even 45 degree stake angle meant the holding power would be at its maximum, and boy was I wrong. I started with a straight pull, simulating a corner stake on a tent floor at 0 degrees. Stakes inserted straight down averaged 19.5 newtons of holding power. Next, I drove the stakes at a 10 degree angle. These held an average of 20.9 newtons. Next was 20 degrees at 18.2 newtons. And finally 30 degrees, only 12.6 newtons. The clear winner, time and again, was 10 degrees, followed closely in second by 0 degrees. For the remainder of testing, all stakes were placed at a 10 degree angle to ensure maximum efficiency and consistency. It was finally time for the first test, performance. Cue the stake pulling montage. Testing performance was determining the pure holding power of the stake. How well does a stake design and construction keep it in the dirt? And now let's review the results. From the poorest performer to the best, the short shepherd hook. No surprises here. Very little surface area, very little to grab onto the soil, finished with 6.88 newtons. The short V titanium. This one was a surprise. Upon closer inspection, and I wish I would have gotten it on video, when you were pulling you could actually see small grains of soil leaking through the holes. I would not have imagined that they would make such an impact on performance, but again, it reduces surface area available to grip the soil. It put this stake squarely in second to last place with 10.8 newtons. The short peg. Close performance to the titanium V with an 11.2 newtons. The short Y, 13.16 newtons. Short V, 14.61 newtons. The long shepherd hook, third place at 16.93 newtons. The long Y, second place at 20.14 newtons. And our winner, the long V, at 21.35 newtons. Now we'll normalize on a 1 to 5 point scale, with 5 points being awarded to the victor and 1 point being awarded as a participation ribbon to the loser. The stake length was a huge differentiator in performance, and it makes sense. Again, we're looking strictly at surface area. The longer your stake is, the more surface area you have engaged in the soil, the harder it's going to be to pull out. The length also adds material, which segues nicely into our next category, weight. In the bottom, the long Y, the heavyweight, at 0.54 ounces or 15.2 grams. The long shepherd hook at 0.52 ounces, 14.81 grams. The long V at 0.42 ounces, 11.81 grams. The short V titanium. Again, this shocked me. The titanium V was the heaviest of the small stakes at 0.40 ounces and 11.3 grams. The short V alloy, 0.38 ounces, 10.66 grams. Short peg, 0.36 ounces, 10.32 grams. In second place, the short Y, 0.34 ounces, 9.60 grams. And the short shepherd hook, the winner by a big margin, at 0.21 ounces, 6.09 grams. Once again, we'll normalize on a 1 to 5 point scale, with 5 points being awarded to the victor and 1 point being awarded to the loser. And here's how they stack up. Next comes durability. Using a very unsophisticated rig to hold the stake and hit it with a sledgehammer, I was able to simulate striking your stake with a rock and hitting another rock buried under the soil. Stakes were tested to failure, which was determined to be either A, when the stake body or shaft began to deform or warp, or B, when the stake tip or head was compromised to the point it would no longer function well. And the first round of durability testing. And the results. So tied for last place is the short shepherd hook and the short V titanium. As expected, the short shepherd hook bent easily, with a pour showing at 2.22 joules, 1.64 foot-pounds. Once again, I was shocked with the results of the short V titanium. You guys are going to think I just had it out for these stakes. I smashed up multiple stakes just to see if it was a fluke, and it wasn't. Each time the tips of these stakes just curled at 2.22 joules, 1.64 foot-pounds. And now for round two. The long V's tip curled at 4.45 joules, 3.28 foot-pounds. And the next round of testing. The long shepherd hook's body began to bend at 6.67 joules, 4.92 foot-pounds. And the semifinal round. The short V and short peg were eliminated in the semifinal round. The aluminum alloy in this version of the short V proved to be resistant to bending, but the tip broke at 8.9 joules, 6.56 foot-pounds. The aluminum tubing of the short peg also deformed at the same force. And the winners of the durability testing, the short and long Y stakes. Both of these stakes proved more durable than other designs in both long and short categories. They both experienced some tip blunting, but their Y design held up well with no bends or warps. Again, we'll normalize on a 1 to 5 point scale, with 5 points being awarded to the most durable stakes and 1 point being awarded to the least durable. And lastly, we look at cost. I shopped around for a while online to get some average pricing per stake. There is some variation by manufacturer, especially with the well-known outdoor brands, but they're all relatively in the ballpark. And these are the results. Nobody should be surprised at this point, but unfortunately, the short V titanium is the most expensive stake we tested, coming in at $3.99 US dollars per stake. Next was the short peg at $3.83 per stake. Not much of a surprise, considering that the tip and shaft and head are all components that have to be made separately and then assembled. Next was the short V alloy at $3.24 per stake. The alloy is TH72M. I have to assume that because it's allegedly stronger than aluminum, it's also more expensive. The short Y was next at $2.99 per stake. There are cheaper Y stakes on the market, but surprisingly I could only find a name brand for the short version, so hence the more expensive price point. The short shepherd hook was next at $2.08 per stake. Not much material needed, but they are titanium. I would have not thought so at the beginning of this project, but the long stakes were all the most inexpensive. I think that's because there's a lot more variety from different manufacturers available at these sizes. So moving into third place was the long V at $1.24 per stake. In second, the long shepherd hook at 90 cents per stake. And the winner, the long Y at a dirt cheap 83 cents per stake. I'll normalize these results and we have our scores. And that brings us to the final rankings. After averaging scores from performance, weight, durability, and cost, the winner of the best overall stake design goes to the long Y. And the numbers speak for themselves. It came in first in durability and cost, and second in performance. It did take a hit, coming in last in the weight category, but it wasn't enough to unseat the long Y as the champ. The long V came in a respectable second, and the short Y came in third. And yes, the poor short V titanium, last place. I've used this style of stake for some years, and I was really disappointed with how it did, but that was the reason for the experiment. So what am I carrying from now on? Without a doubt, the long Y. The Y design gives it unparalleled strength against deforming or tip bending. It has excellent holding power. It's lightweight enough, and it is super cheap. I love that you can find these stakes for less than $1 a piece online. Links can be found in the description. No sweat if you misplace one or accidentally leave one behind. It is truly a well-balanced stake, and it's become my go-to. So, before you go, a few things I learned along the way during this project. First, stake angle matters. 10 degrees is best, just slightly off vertical. Second, stake depth matters. I found during my pull tests that if a stake head was even an inch out of the ground, it reduced its holding power by 24%. It comes down to the basic mechanics of a lever. The top of the ground acts as the fulcrum, so the more stake exposed above ground, the less force it takes to dislodge it. Don't settle if you hit a rock or if your stake is still well out of the ground. Try to get it down to its maximum depth. Third, if you're going to use the Y stakes like I'm recommending, point the bottom of the Y towards your tent. This was counterintuitive to me at first. I thought the top of the Y should be pointed to the tent. I was wrong. When I tested both methods side by side, the base facing the tent had 22% more holding power than the top of the Y facing the tent. If you think about it, it's the same way a V stake goes into the ground. Pay attention to how you orient your Y stake. And last tip, I've started to add a daisy chain of cord at each tent corner stake down point. This is going to give you some flexibility when it comes time to stake down your tent and you're finding rocks or other impediments. Here I've got one of my tents, and you can see here the daisy chain I've attached to each one of the tent corners. It gives you more flexibility as you're looking for proper placement and to get your stake all the way into the ground. Thank you for joining me for this project. Please consider liking and subscribing. We have a Patreon page link in the description if you feel like supporting future reviews and testing. And we have a website where we post all of our reviews and articles. Link also in the description. Now get up and go outside.